Donald Trump seems to be drowning, self-inflicted drowning, if that's a thing, concerning the Epstein matter and the Epstein scandal. It's because he's mishandled that the way he's mishandled our economy, our national security, global affairs, domestic affairs, and immigration policy, and the list goes on. We go over all the updates in the Epstein case on a podcast on the Midas Touch Network we call Legal AF, and here's a clip.
Let's get into it very quickly, though, Popok, because I want to show two things. One, I want to show Donald Trump in the Oval Office saying two things. I got two clips of him this week. Then I want to show what MAGA Mike Johnson was saying. So Donald Trump says it's a Democratic hoax, everything relating to Epstein. As the Epstein survivors are there in Capitol Hill, Trump saying it's all a hoax, one big Democratic hoax. Let's play that clip first.
Nobody's going to talk about, because they're going to talk about the Epstein, whatever. I understand that we were subpoenaed to give files, and I understand we've given thousands of pages of files. And I know that no matter what you do, it's going to keep going. And I think it's enough, because I think we should talk about the greatness of our country and the success that we're having. I think we're probably having, according to what I read, even from two people in this room, we're having the most successful 8 months of any president ever. And that's what I want to talk about. That's what we should be talking about, not the Epstein hoax.
Again, the 33,000 files that were turned over were all old files that had previously been released. 97% of them were old files. The 3% of new files, essentially all redacted, where you couldn't read anything that was even in what was released. There are 3 gigabytes of other files that are out there. You and I...
terabytes.
3 terabytes of data that's out there that needs to be, released. It'd be easy for it to be released. But then you have Trump saying it's a hoax, but then MAGA Mike Johnson, Michael Popok, says that actually Donald Trump was the informant and the good guy. Here, play this clip.
He's not saying that what Epstein did is a hoax. It's a terrible, unspeakable evil. He believes that himself. When he first heard the rumor, he kicked him out of Mar-a-Lago. He was an FBI informant to try to take this stuff down. The president knows and has great sympathy for the women who have suffered these unspeakable harms. It's detestable to him. He and I have spoken about this as recently as 24 hours ago.
He's the informant. He hung out. He was hanging out at all the Epstein events and best friends with them because he was the informant, Michael Popok. That he didn't say it was a hoax. Play the clip right before where he says it was a hoax. What do you make of it, Popok?
Yeah, well, all right. First of all, if he's the informant, then we have him to blame for Epstein getting a sweetheart deal through Alex Acosta, who Donald Trump eventually elevated once he took the White House to be his labor secretary. Alex Acosta, the U.S. attorney for Miami, Southern District of Florida. So Trump, as the informant, which suggested he had criminal liability, was paved the way for a non-prosecution agreement to keep Epstein on the street, to continue to abuse girls and rape them. That's what in the hallway of Congress. That's what our Speaker of the House. That's his new position. All right, let's back up a little bit. All the things that the Trump administration is trying to kill the Epstein story is backfiring and not working, because the American people, and MAGA in particular, are understandably interested to find out who is in the files. And the more that Donald Trump tries to make it go away, the worse it is for him. He called it a hoax. The fact that Mike Johnson says, no, that's not what he meant was the hoax. It's the other thing no, stop. Johnson meets with the victims, the survivors, for 2.5 hours, allegedly, in his office before the press conference. But you know who didn't meet with them and has not only not embraced them the way they've requested, but has actually trolled them and attacked them moments after the press conference, is Donald Trump. And during the press conference with the flyover, as you said, he's disrespectful of the survivors. He doesn't believe them. He can't acknowledge what is in the files. What is in the files, this 3 terabytes we've talked about, we know from reporting, includes references to Donald Trump, that Donald Trump has told people, including those on Fox News, that he's very concerned about how things could, quote unquote, be misconstrued in the Epstein files. This is the only, we don't have to look for an exotic reason. This is the reason that Trump has not allowed his Attorney General, Pam Bondi, to release the files as she promised back in February. He will not allow it. So what he's been trying to do is trying to spoon feed the American people shit hoping that they'll accept it and then move on from this story. So he had Mike Johnson take a recess for the summer, hoping the story, the oxygen would be taken away from the story. Well, it hasn't been, mainly because news organizations like Midas Touch and Legal AF are so trained on it, and so are the American people. MAGA also won't let it go, so that didn't work. Then they said, "Well, we'll blame Joe Biden. We'll run." J.D. Vance is becoming, for me, it reminds me of what Ann Richards said about Bush. He was born with a silver foot in his mouth. J.D. Vance, they trot him out all the time to try to tamp down stories like Donald Trump's not dying. But if he is dying, I'm ready for the job. That's not what you say out loud if you're trying to distract from is Donald Trump alive or dead story. You also don't trot him out to try to kill the Epstein story by trying to blame Biden. So that blew up in their face. So then they decided, it's obvious, to use the Oversight Committee. I'm talking about the White House, to use the Oversight Committee to spoon feed and cook the books and see if, will 30,000 pages satisfy the American people? No. Will the grand jury transcripts from the judges satisfy the American people? No. The only thing, and he has the power he's got the keys to the door in his pocket, Trump, but he refuses to do it, hoping that everything else will make this story go away. And then, and that allows, in that vacuum, like undercover reporting by what used to be Project Veritas, to go undercover on a dating app with somebody who identified themselves as, and it is identified as, the acting director of enforcement for the Department of Justice, to go on a date and say, "Oh yeah, you know what we're doing with the Epstein files?" To the woman he thought was a date, we're redacting the names of the Republicans so it only harms the Democrats. And we moved Maxwell, a convicted sex predator, against BOP guidelines to a Fed spa environment, effectively, to reward her for not for talking, but to shut her up so that she doesn't point the finger at Donald Trump. And so that came out with a hot mic undercover just in the last couple of days. The way to crush the story, if you're Donald Trump politically, is that you release the files, but you know why he's not releasing the files. So nothing is helping him in this regard. And it won't. And it will hang around his neck like an albatross through the midterms and beyond, because I don't ever see him growing a brain and releasing those files. He'll never meet with the victims. He'll never he'll bury his head in the sand when all these people are deposed. Hillary Clinton needs to be deposed. Get the victims there. Get the details of what happened and how Donald Trump was best friends with convicted child sex traffickers and indicted ones. Get that out into the open, do the public service there, and then let the chips fall where they may.
Well, look, if he's the hero in this narrative, as MAGA Mike Johnson suggests, you would absolutely want to release that right away. You redact the victims, you show that you were a hero, and you save the day. My gosh, if you were really the person who helped expose all of this, and because of you, Epstein was going to be brought to justice, but that's not what happened. There was a sweetheart non-prosecution agreement deal that was entered into as a result of whatever took place during that time period in 2006, 2007, when the local police first and then FBI agents were tipped off about what Epstein was doing in Palm Beach. And this also ties in with the reporting that we got on from Michael Wolff, where Epstein, though, did think that it was possible that Trump informed on Epstein after a real estate deal gone wrong. Epstein and Donald Trump were involved in a lot of things together. They knew each other very well, and oftentimes informants are not good guys. There's a difference between an undercover cop and a confidential informant. Often confidential informants are involved in the underlying act. I can tell you that because I did a lot of civil cases in Bakersfield that dealt with CIs and confidential informants and how they were utilized. Epstein always thought that when Epstein was threatening to potentially bring litigation against Donald Trump when they had a falling out of their friendship in that 2004 to 2006 period, that Donald Trump may have told on Epstein secretly in order to get Epstein to not go after Donald Trump. Epstein told Donald Trump about a real estate deal that Epstein was involved in, $36 million purchase of a beachfront property on Palm Beach. Epstein wanted Donald Trump's advice about how to maybe move the pool or what to do with it. And so Epstein asked Donald to come take a look. Then a few days or weeks later, Epstein finds out that the seller sold it to Donald Trump and not Epstein. And Epstein's like, what the hell? I was just asking you for advice. A few years later, Donald Trump resells the same property. All Trump does is paint it. Really, no additions, nothing. Resells it to a Russian fertilizer oligarch for about 2x the value. A $40 million, $41 million property sells for about $90 million. And then the Russian oligarch swiftly destroys the property and claims there was mold all over the property, doesn't take action against Trump. Epstein thought that one of the things that could have been going on there was that there was shady Russian money entering into the United States. He didn't know one way or another, but I think he suspected that. That put him and Trump in a conflict. That's why their relationship ended. And Epstein thought because they knew each other, because they were hanging out and being in all these places together, maybe that's what happened and how, and how the police were tipped off to know when to show up, where to go, and where to look. But if Trump is the hero in that story, then really, then you would want to release the files. It would be great. But in the Epstein version, Trump's not the hero. He's potentially an accomplice who then ratted in order to get by on this real estate deal, which, when you think about it, fundamentally has some logic to me that something like that could have happened. In any event, release the freaking files. Let's get done with it. Let the victims want the files released. Stop using the victims as the reason why you're saying you're not releasing the files. And the American people deserve it. It's not a Democratic hoax. I can't think of anything more offensive to say what the Epstein sex trafficking ring than calling it a Democratic hoax. What the hell is even going on here?
Welcome back. Now you're loaded with the information you need about the Epstein matter. I do it on Wednesdays and Saturdays, a podcast Wednesdays with Karen Freeman Ignifilo, Saturdays with Ben Mysalis, and then hot takes like this here on the Legal AF YouTube channel about every hour, as well as our Legal AF Substack. Subscribe to Legal AF YouTube channel. Come over to Legal AF Substack and become a paid member. That really helps the cause. And then help us with our podcast, which is you can do by watching us on Wednesdays and Saturdays for the full-length podcast, 8 p.m. Eastern Time on the Midas Touch Network, commercial-free versions on our Legal AF Substack, or pick us up on podcast platforms of your choice. With your views, with your participation, we will continue to have Legal AF be the top law and politics podcast in America and around the world. So until my next report, I'm Michael Popok. I'm Michael Popok, and I got some big news for our audience. Most of you know me as the co-founder of Midas Touch's Legal AF and the Legal AF YouTube channel, or as a 35-year national trial lawyer. Now, building on what we started together on Legal AF, I've launched a new law firm, the Popok Firm, dedicated to obtaining justice through compassionate and zealous legal representation. At the Popok Firm, we are focused on obtaining justice for those who have been injured or damaged by a life-altering event by securing the highest dollar recoveries. I've been tirelessly fighting for justice for the last 35 years, so my own law firm organically building on my Legal AF work just feels right. And I've handpicked a team of top-tier trial fighters and settlement experts throughout all 50 states known as big auto injury attorneys who have the know-how to beat heartless insurance companies, corporations, government entities, and their attorneys. Big Auto's attorneys working with my firm are rock stars in their respective states and collectively responsible for billions of dollars in recoveries. So if you or a loved one have been on the wrong side of a catastrophic auto, motor vehicle, rideshare, or truck accident, suffered a personal injury, or been the victim of medical malpractice, employment harassment or discrimination, or suffered a violation of your civil and constitutional rights, then contact the Popok Firm today at 1-877-POPOK-AF or by visiting my website at www.thepopokfirm.com and fill out a free case evaluation form. And if we determine that you have a case and you sign with us, we don't get paid unless you do. The Popok Firm, fighting for your justice every step of the way.